Hello. Have you ever wondered if you should send your child to French school, even if they're not fluent in that language? This presentation will answer some of your questions as well as give you more information on the services that are offered to bilingual children in a French school. At Cité de l'Amitié, we have around 360 students and about 120 of those participate in the Francisation program, so around 20 students per grade. The majority of students who start in kindergarten continue their schooling in French, at least until grade 5, and most even graduate in French. Every year we have about 5 to 10 students who start kindergarten and speak little to no French. Services are offered until grade 5 according to students' needs and availability of teachers and/or language monitors. By choosing a French school, you're choosing a school where everything happens in French, except English classes which start in 3rd grade. Your child will be in a classroom with Francophone students, but also with a few students who are starting to learn French as a second language. Teachers are used to having students who are learning the language, so they use lots of gestures and pictures to help students understand what they're saying. They also use lots of repetition, so students hear the same words many times to better understand them. Stories, songs, and games are also a priority to make language learning more interesting for students. We also have what we call integrated services. Many teachers, including the Francisation teacher, the resource teachers, the literacy teacher, as well as language monitors, sometimes work in small groups with students from the same level according to their needs. Many times, these interventions are done outside of the classroom to allow students to express themselves more freely. Often, it's also during this time that the Francisation teacher and the language monitors work on vocabulary with students who are learning the language while also working on concepts that have been taught in class. The only exception to the rule is when we speak English to the child for safety reasons. For example, we explain fire drills to them in English to be sure all students understand, since we don't want to take a chance. We also respect each child's comfort level when they're speaking. When they start, we encourage them to try and speak French, but we accept that they speak English and repeat what they said in French afterwards so they hear it. We offer many services to students and families to help children develop their French language skills. The Preschool Francisation program is offered to 4-year-olds the year before they start kindergarten. During these 2.5-hour weekly sessions, children participate in activities at school that allow them to learn new vocabulary and practice their French while getting used to the school environment and the teachers they'll be working with once they start school. If they can, parents are invited to participate in these activities as well. There's also a celebration at the end of the sessions to celebrate children's progress. family nights are offered twice per year for all families who participate in the Francisation program. These evening activities give the whole family a chance to participate in an activity at school with other families who are in similar situations. As I mentioned earlier, we also have the Francisation teacher and 2 language monitors who accompany students in their learning, either in the classroom or in smaller groups outside the classroom. I want to mention that the times where students are taken out of class are predetermined with their teacher to ensure that it works with the class schedule. We also offer services for parents to help you accompany your child in their school journey. Coffee gatherings are held 5 to 6 times per year in English to allow parents who are less comfortable in French to come discuss and get new resources to help their child at home. The Facebook page for Francisation also offers many resources in both languages to help you at home. When it comes to communicating with parents, we use Class Dojo at school, which allows all messages to be translated in many languages. For parents who are interested, we can also match you up with another family from school or even from the same class to help you out. We also have activity suitcases that can be sent home to offer new activities to do in French. Inside, you'll find games, books, songs, DVDs, resources for parents, and more. These suitcases are mostly sent to students in kindergarten and can be kept at home for 2 or 3 weeks. I'm often asked what the difference is between French school and French immersion. I can tell you that in a French school, French is everywhere. From the time your child steps on the school bus in the morning until the time they leave it after school, they'll be surrounded by French. Therefore, they will have ample opportunity to learn new vocabulary and practice their conversational skills. Everything they learn at school will also be in French. They will also have the advantage of benefiting from many cultural activities such as shows, presentations, music, stories, and much more. This will allow them to better understand, appreciate, and identify with French culture. Another advantage is that your child will make French-speaking friends. The main reason for kids to learn a new language is to communicate. Since their friends will be French, your child will be more motivated to learn to communicate in French. Many parents have the same questions when it comes to choosing French school or French immersion for their child. I wanted to go over a few of those questions since they come up pretty often and I find they're important to answer. The first question I get is, will my child be able to keep up with French-speaking students in the classroom? So as I mentioned already, homeroom teachers are very used to having French second language learners in their classroom and use every method possible to ensure they understand what's going on. With the help of the Francisation teacher and language monitors, most students are able to follow the concepts that are being taught in class. Another question I get is, will my child be able to make friends even if they don't speak much French at the beginning of the school year? So children are very resilient and are often less aware of differences than adults are. The language monitors and Francisation teacher always spend the first month of the year with the kindergarten classes to ensure that students learning the language are reassured and are able to follow the routine. Their role is also to show other students how to help them and encourage them to practice their French. Children naturally communicate with gestures, and I've already had a situation where we had a new student who didn't speak French or English, and it took a few days for the other students to notice since they communicated with gestures. We're also conscious that it takes a while for a child to learn and feel comfortable speaking a new language, so we aren't punitive with them if they speak English. We do encourage others to speak to them in French so they hear it as much as possible, and we also encourage them to practice, but there aren't any consequences. I often get questions from parents who are less comfortable in French or who don't speak French, and I wanted to take a few minutes to talk about some of these questions because they're valid concerns. So one of the questions I get a lot is, will I be able to get involved at school? As parents, we all want to be involved in our child's education and participate in activities at school. At Cité de l'Amitié, we encourage all parents to participate and be present with their child no matter what language they speak. Our parent committee is made up of Francophone and Anglophone parents, and meetings are held in both languages, so everyone is welcome. Another question I get is, will I be able to communicate with my child's teacher? So as I mentioned earlier, our main means of communication is Class Dojo, where all messages can be translated in many different languages so everyone can understand. Most teachers can communicate in English, but someone else is always available to translate if needed. Homework. What to do if I don't speak French? So when it comes to homework, we have resources to help you if language is an issue. For younger students, we encourage reading at home and working on their spelling words once they start reading and writing. When they get a bit older, they will have a bit more homework to do in French and math, but most students should be able to do their work on their own. Depending on availability, we can also offer tutoring or other help with homework. As parents, we all want our child to succeed. If you choose to send your child to French school, here are a few things you can expect when they start in kindergarten. So, when children are learning a new language, it's normal that they go through a period where they listen and observe much more to understand words that are being said. During this time, it's possible that the child doesn't speak much since they're putting all their energy into understanding and learning the words they're hearing, and this is completely normal. Often, children will also ask lots of questions to better understand and to learn new words. So, for example, how do you say chair in French? They will learn this one word at a time, but it's part of the process. For children who are more reserved, it's possible that they don't ask as many questions, but they observe even more closely, and that's all right too. When they start to speak French, most children will insert a few French words in an English sentence. For example, I want the jaune one. This shows that they're starting to acquire and understand words enough to start using them in a sentence. If you want to help your child during this phase, I encourage you to repeat the sentence in French after them without necessarily asking them to repeat it, since it could frustrate them more than anything else. Keep encouraging them and congratulate them for their efforts. Every year, I like to have a discussion with students to see why it's important for them to learn French and why they like speaking French. I always have this discussion after Christmas, usually after they've started the year and they've progressed in their French language skills. And every year I get very interesting answers. A few of the answers I got this year are the following. I like speaking French because I can talk to my friends. So this comes back to the explanation I gave earlier where kids want to be able to speak to their friends. And if they're at school with French speaking friends, they will try as much as possible to speak to them in French and to improve their skills. Another comment I got was it was hard at first, but now it's fun. So for a child who's just starting to learn the language, it's going to be hard at first. It could be a little bit frustrating for them, but they keep trying and we help them along. And once they start speaking French, even with just little words or sentences, they're really proud of themselves and they enjoy seeing their progress and being able to speak to people in French. Another child said, I want to speak many languages, and my mom says it's important. So for this child, it was important to speak many languages. They wanted to learn, but also the fact that mom said it was important. So the discussions you have at home and the explanations you give them as to why it's important for you that they learn French and why it might be important for you to be bilingual as well, it plays a big role in the child's motivation to learn French or learn another language. So now that I've explained all the services that we offer at Cité de l'Amitié, you might be thinking of sending your child to a French school if you weren't thinking about it already. You might also be wondering, what can I do now to help my child? So whether your child is 1, 4, 6, or 8, it's never too early or too late to help prepare them. If you already speak French at home and your child is already exposed to quite a bit of French, you might not need all of these tips, but some of them might still be helpful. For families who are just starting, who maybe don't speak French at all at home or very little, I suggest starting gradually, so at least 10 minutes every day in French. That way your child can get used to hearing you speak French and be able to adjust a little bit easier to the change. So the 10 minutes could be at supper time, where your child knows every day we have supper, we sit down, we speak French, and that is a time where it's only in French. It can also be just before bed reading a book, where you read the book with your child and it's going to be a French book, and that's it. That way your child, there's a familiarity to it where your child gets used to that time being spent in French. It can also be a new game that you find together where you want to play that game in French, just something to make it fun. Reading is something I suggest to everyone. So whether you speak only French at home or whether you're just starting, reading is helpful for everyone. It helps work on vocabulary. And by reading books, you can also check to see if your child understands, not only is able to speak. So asking them questions throughout the book of what they think might happen, what happened in that page, what they enjoyed about the book, or asking them to retell you the story. It's all different ways, depending on your child's abilities in French, it's all different ways that you can work on reading with them. I also suggest songs and rhymes to help children learn. A lot of kids, the first things they will say in French will be just repeating songs that they've learned. So even if you're not sitting there and singing the songs, just having French music playing in the background, the kids will hear the words and eventually they'll start singing the songs and they won't even notice that they're singing. So that's always a really good tip. Watching French TV shows like Passepartout can really help as well with vocabulary. And with Netflix now, it's really easy to just switch the language. So if your child already watches a show that they like very much, you can switch the language every once in a while to have them watch the show in French. Or they can also pick a new show, ask them to go through it with you and find a new show that they might like to watch and only watch that show in French. Also take part in French activities in the community. So it could be structured activities like the ones I'm going to talk about in the next slide, or it can be just going to the grocery store, making your grocery list in French, speaking to people you see there in French, and like speaking to the cashier in French, just so your child sees that French is not only at home and it's not only at school, it's really everywhere. And most important is show them the importance of being bilingual. So if you're choosing to send your child to a French school, obviously, it's important to you that they learn French and that they become bilingual. So show them the importance of that and why you're deciding to send them to French school. Have a discussion and include them in the discussion, a little bit like I did with the kids, of asking them why it's important for them to speak French and why they think it might be helpful for them. And by doing that, they'll become more involved in the learning process. Like I was saying earlier, there are activities, structured activities that you can do in French in the community. Right now, with the pandemic situation, there might not be as many, but there's still some things that are being offered online or different options. So activities at the library, even just going to the library to pick French books. The Parlez-moi program for younger kids, as well as the Resource Center for Parents, are just examples of different places in the community where you can do activities in French with your child. If you have any questions or if you need more information about the services that we offer, or if you'd like to know if you can register your child for French school, I'd invite you to send me an email at the address on the screen or visit the Facebook Francisation page for Cité de l'Amitié, and I'll be happy to answer your questions. So whether your child is 1, 4, 6, or 8, it's never too early or too late to start planning, and I'll be happy to answer any questions you might have. Thank you very much for listening to the presentation. And if you know anyone who might want more information about our services or maybe doesn't know about our services, I would encourage you to share the presentation with them. So once again, thank you very much, and I hope to be hearing from you.